If you've ever noticed that life just feels more electric during the World Cup, you're not making it up. Millions of guys go through the exact same thing, and weirdly enough, it's got way less to do with soccer than most people assume. Psychology shows that the World Cup wakes up some pretty ancient parts of the male brain that everyday life almost never touches, and once you get why, you'll never watch the tournament the same way again. Topic 1. The weird shift. Every guy notices during the World Cup. Every 4 years, something strange kicks in, and tons of men go through it without ever stopping to ask why. All of a sudden, schedules get rearranged, every conversation circles back to the next match, and a regular Tuesday starts to feel like a big deal. A guy who couldn't care less about sports news the rest of the year somehow knows the exact kickoff time for his national team. At first, it just looks like plain old excitement about soccer. But if that were really the whole story, it wouldn't hit so many different guys in such similar ways. Here's the interesting part. This shift goes way beyond what's happening on the field. A dad who never cries suddenly tears up after a last-minute win. Co-workers who barely say 2 words to each other spend their whole lunch break arguing about lineups and predictions. Total strangers swap smiles, jokes, and opinions like they've known each other forever. Even guys who usually keep a tight lid on their emotions end up jumping off the couch, yelling at the TV, pacing around the living room, or going dead silent after a brutal loss. There's something way deeper than entertainment getting switched on here. What's even wilder is that this same guy might spend most of the year feeling drained, checked out, or just going through the motions. Then the World Cup rolls around, and almost overnight there's this fresh wave of anticipation, energy, and purpose that's hard to put into words. For a few weeks, life just feels more vivid. Most people figure the explanation is obvious. Guys just love soccer. But that leaves out the most important piece of the puzzle, and that's exactly where psychology starts digging up something a lot deeper. Topic 2. Your brain isn't just watching a game. Here's something most people never realize. The brain doesn't process the World Cup the way it processes a regular soccer match. To your conscious mind, it's just 90 minutes of guys chasing a ball. But under the hood, your brain is picking up on something much bigger. Uncertainty, high stakes, and the chance of a meaningful payoff. Those 3 things happen to be some of the biggest triggers for your brain's reward system. The excitement kicks in way before the ref even blows the whistle, because the anticipation itself sets off a powerful psychological response. That's why the hours before a match can feel just as exciting as the game itself. A guy checks the kickoff time for the 10th time, runs through different scenarios in his head, talks lineups, and basically plays the whole match out mentally before it even starts. That's not him being irrational. That's just how the brain naturally reacts to uncertainty. Neuroscientists have found that dopamine doesn't just show up when you get a reward. It spikes hardest when the outcome is uncertain and actually matters emotionally. The World Cup nails that exact combo, which is why every pass, every blunder, and every goal suddenly feels huge. But here's the catch that messes with the simple explanation. If it were all just dopamine and hype, then any gripping movie, casino game, or championship would hit exactly the same way. For a lot of guys, though, it doesn't. There's something uniquely powerful about millions of people getting emotionally locked into the exact same outcome at the exact same moment. The match itself is just the part you can see. The real action is happening inside the brain, where ancient psychological wiring starts firing up in ways modern life almost never allows. And that's where the story gets even more interesting. Topic 3. The ancient tribal instinct still living inside men. To get why the World Cup feels so different, you've got to look way past modern sports and back to the world our ancestors actually lived in. For thousands of years, men survived by sticking together in tight-knit groups. Hunting, protecting the tribe, exploring new territory, facing down danger. None of that was really a solo gig. It came down to trust, common goals, and full commitment to the group. Civilization has obviously changed a ton since then, but the human brain still carries a lot of the psychological wiring that evolved back then. It didn't just vanish because life got more comfortable. When millions of men watch their country play, the brain isn't treating it like just another TV show. It picks up on familiar patterns that used to be a matter of survival. An us versus a them, a shared mission, uncertainty, teamwork, and celebrating together. That's why throwing on a jersey, belting out the national anthem, or watching a make-or-break match with your buddies can feel surprisingly meaningful. These little rituals might look simple on the surface, but psychologically they're flipping a switch on an old instinct, the drive to belong to something bigger than yourself. For a moment, all the personal differences fade out, and one shared identity takes the spotlight. That's also why wins can feel so personal, even though the people celebrating never actually stepped on the field. The emotional investment isn't really about a ball going into a net. It's about identifying with a group that stands for something bigger than you. Modern life barely offers any experiences that create that kind of shared purpose anymore. Most days are all about personal responsibilities, individual achievements, and your own private routine. The World Cup breaks that pattern and reminds guys of something they almost never get to feel anymore. But belonging to a tribe is only half the story, because there's another psychological need quietly bubbling up underneath it. One that modern life usually leaves unmet without anyone even noticing. If you're into this kind of deep dive into the psychology behind everyday stuff, go ahead and subscribe to the channel. We dig into the hidden reasons behind human behavior, masculinity, and the mind, helping you understand not just what people do, but why they actually do it. All right, let's keep going because we've only scratched the surface so far. Topic 4. Why everyday life almost never gives men this feeling. The contrast hits hard the moment the tournament wraps up. Almost overnight, all that buzzing anticipation disappears. The group chats go quiet, and the usual routine quietly creeps back in. A lot of guys can't really put their finger on why everything suddenly feels flatter. Nothing major has actually changed in their lives, yet that buzz that had been building for weeks just evaporates. What's really disappearing isn't the soccer itself. It's the whole emotional atmosphere the tournament created. Modern life runs super efficiently, but it tends to strip away the kind of experiences that used to naturally bring men together. Work's increasingly remote, friendships get harder to keep up, neighborhoods are less connected, and free time usually means everyone staring at their own separate screen. Even surrounded by people, a lot of guys end up carrying their stuff alone. There are fewer shared rituals, fewer group challenges, fewer moments where everybody's emotionally locked into the same goal. Without even realizing it, plenty of men start mistaking that emotional flatness for this is just what being an adult feels like. The World Cup temporarily smashes that pattern. It gives men an excuse to get together, celebrate, argue, hope, and share something meaningful with millions of other people. For a few weeks, life feels synced up again. Conversations flow easy, strangers become buddies, and ordinary days suddenly feel like they actually matter, something normal routines rarely deliver. Which raises an even bigger question. If the tournament can flip that switch this fast, what exactly is it tapping into in the male mind? Turns out the answer has way less to do with competition and way more to do with one of the strongest forces driving human behavior: identity. Topic 5. The power of shared identity. One of the strongest forces in human psychology is the need to belong to something bigger than yourself. During the World Cup, there's no ignoring that need. A jersey stops being just a piece of clothing. A flag means more than a piece of fabric. And a national anthem can hit even the most stoic guy right in the chest. These symbols work because they instantly link millions of people to one shared identity. For a brief stretch, backgrounds, jobs, and everyday worries take a backseat to one simple idea. We're all in this together. This kind of bond hits especially hard for men, since male friendships tend to grow through shared experiences, rather than deep emotional heart-to-hearts. Two guys can sit through hours of a match, lose their minds over a goal, argue about a ref's call, or go silent together during a penalty shootout, and somehow walk away feeling closer than before. That bond isn't built by talking about feelings directly. It's built by living through the same emotional roller coaster side by side. Psychologists have noted for a long time that shared goals and synced-up experiences build trust and connection way faster than just casual small talk ever could. That's exactly why the World Cup memories people treasure most usually aren't the matches themselves. People remember where they watched the final, who was sitting next to them, the roar of the crowd, the phone calls right after a wild win, or the silence after a gutting loss. The game becomes the backdrop for something way bigger, a sense of connection that modern life almost never hands out for free. But as powerful as shared identity is, it still doesn't fully explain why so many men show emotions during the World Cup that they normally keep locked away. And that might be the most revealing piece of all. Topic 6. Why men feel emotions they normally keep hidden. For a lot of guys, everyday life comes with an unspoken rule. Stay cool, fix the problem, keep moving. From a young age, they're often praised more for being dependable than for being expressive, so they learn early to bottle up disappointment, fear, even joy. Over time, that emotional armor just becomes second nature. It's not that men stop feeling things deeply. They just get really good at keeping it all under the surface. Then the World Cup shows up, and something kind of remarkable happens. Suddenly, all those buried emotions have a place where they're totally welcome. A guy can leap off the couch after a last-second goal, hug a complete stranger, feel his heart pounding before a penalty kick, or even choke up after a huge win or a devastating loss, and nobody's going to give him a weird look for it. In almost any other setting, those reactions might seem a little much. During the World Cup, they're just par for the course. The tournament creates this rare space where going all in emotionally isn't just okay. It's basically expected. For a few weeks, a lot of men get a taste of emotional freedom they almost never allow themselves the rest of the time. That's part of why the tournament ends up feeling so much bigger than sports. It's one of the few times excitement, anxiety, hope, pride, relief, even heartbreak can all come out in the open, surrounded by people feeling the exact same thing. That shared green light creates a serious sense of relief, almost like letting off pressure that's been building for months. But emotions don't just appear out of thin air. Behind every burst of excitement and every wild celebration, the brain is running an incredible chemical show. And that helps explain why these moments feel so unbelievably alive. Topic 7. The brain chemistry behind the whole experience. What makes the World Cup so unforgettable isn't only happening in the stadium or on your TV screen. It's happening inside your skull. Every close call, every insane save, every goal in stoppage time sets off a perfectly timed chemical chain reaction. Dopamine fuels the anticipation. Adrenaline gets your body ready to react. Cortisol sharpens your focus during the tense moments. And once the win finally lands, the emotional release can feel completely overwhelming. That's why one single match can leave you mentally wiped out, even though you never left the couch. But the chemistry gets even crazier when you're sharing the experience with other people. Watching a do-or-die match by yourself is exciting, sure, but watching it with friends, family, or a packed stadium of strangers creates something totally different. Researchers have found that emotions are seriously contagious. When everyone gasps at the same near miss or explodes with joy at the same goal, brains in the room actually start syncing up with each other. Heart rates fall into rhythm. Emotional reactions get stronger, and your body releases hormones tied to trust and social bonding. The end result feels way bigger than anything you could ever experience solo. That's also why so many guys can remember exactly where they were for iconic World Cup moments, but can barely recall regular club matches from the same season. The brain prioritizes memories that mix intense emotion with real social connection, filing those away as defining moments instead of just entertainment. Years later, one single goal can instantly bring back the whole room, the people, the conversations, even the exact feeling of that day. But the biggest surprise is still coming. If a few weeks of soccer can stir up this much energy, connection, and purpose, maybe the tournament isn't creating those feelings at all. Maybe it's just uncovering needs that were already sitting there the whole time. Topic 8. What the World Cup says about modern masculinity. At this point, the real question isn't why men love the World Cup anymore. The real question is why so many guys feel more alive during those few weeks than they do for the rest of the year. Once you peel back every layer, the brain chemistry, the tribal instinct, the shared identity, the emotional freedom, a different picture starts to come into focus. The tournament doesn't magically turn men into different people. It just wakes up psychological needs that were always part of who they are. Modern life has handed men incredible opportunities, sure, but it's also quietly chipped away at a lot of the stuff that used to give everyday life real meaning. Fewer tight-knit communities, fewer shared rituals, fewer collective missions, fewer moments where people actually depend on each other. The World Cup temporarily fills that gap. It reminds men what it feels like to belong with no strings attached, to chase a common goal, to celebrate as a group, and to genuinely care about something bigger than their own to-do list. That feeling of being totally locked in isn't some illusion. It's a glimpse of what the human mind is naturally wired to respond to. Maybe that's the biggest takeaway psychology has to offer here. The buzz of the World Cup isn't something men should only chase once every 4 years. It's a clue pointing to what might be missing from the rest of their lives. Purpose, brotherhood, shared challenges, moments that demand your full attention. Those are the things that make life feel vivid, whether you find them on a soccer pitch, in a tight circle of friends, in meaningful work, or by building something bigger than yourself. The World Cup is just a reminder to millions of men that underneath all the routines of modern life, that deeper part of them is still in there, just waiting for a reason to wake back up. Conclusion. The World Cup eventually wraps up, but the questions it stirs up don't. If a few weeks of shared purpose, belonging, and raw emotion can make so many men feel this alive, maybe the real question isn't why the tournament does that to people. It's where else in everyday life that same feeling can be found. Because everything we've dug into today suggests that what a lot of men are actually searching for isn't another soccer match. It's a life packed with meaning, real relationships, shared challenges, and an honest sense of purpose. So take a second and ask yourself, when's the last time you felt that alive outside of sports? What part of your life gives you that same rush of connection, excitement, and purpose? And if the answer doesn't come easy, maybe that's worth sitting with for a minute. If you got something out of this video and want to keep digging into the psychology behind men's behavior, purpose, and the hidden forces shaping our lives, subscribe to the channel and hit that notification bell. We've got plenty more videos that go beyond the obvious. And if this one changed how you see the World Cup, the next one might just change how you see yourself.